Okay, let's talk about the notes you will need to take. Notes you would take if you're doing some kind of qualitative research, such as an interview, and notes that you will need to take for this upcoming assignment. So with a questionnaire, data collection is pretty straightforward, pretty easy. You give them the questionnaire, they fill it out, or you put it online, they fill it out, you talk to them over the phone, and they answer you, and you check the box. But with qualitative research, you need to do a lot of writing. And so, as with the survey, your data come from the answers people give you. From the interviews, your data come from the notes you take. So make sure you take really good notes on what you do. Record what people say, how they say it, etc. So let's talk about the different types of notes. So by the way, I'm going to do this screencast in this format in terms of presenting things instead of just doing the regular slideshow. So notes. Field work. The term field work simply means you're doing stuff out in the field, whether that is you are out observing people, you're sitting down talking to people, taking notes. Field work is doing stuff in the quote-unquote field, whether that is sitting down with interviews or out doing your observations or doing case studies or what have you. So when you do field work, you need to take notes. Certainly you could do some recording and such, but well, let me bring that in quickly. I may have said it before, but if you do decide to record people you interview, again, make sure they're adults, 18 or older. Get their permission, but don't just rely on the tape recorder or recording device. You never know what might go wrong when you only rely on that. So make sure you take notes. I'm going to want to see all the notes you took during the interview process itself, as well as notes you do after the fact. So let's talk about these notes. Here we go. One type of note you will take is the subject responses. So bring with you lots of paper, perhaps already have written down on each paper the question you're going to ask. That saves you some writing time. And then you ask the question and you write. You take notes. So it gives a chronological account, meaning you ask question 1, they talk. You probe if needed. You ask question 2, they talk. You probe if needed, etc. You ask, they talk, write things down. Try and keep your eye contact with them pretty constant because that signals that they could keep talking. Get as many direct quotes as you can because remember, that is what you write, they're your data. As I say right there, these notes are your data. So get as many direct quotes as you can because you want to know exactly what they say. Now, as soon as possible, go back and review maybe some mistakes. Maybe you can't quite get everything he or she says, so take notes on the spot best as you can, and then afterwards, as soon as you can, go clean things up, if you will, things you can remember. Or maybe you wrote some notes down in shorthand form. You can elaborate on them later on. So again, one type of note is the question answer, the subject's responses. A second type of note is called methods and personal feelings. These are the behind the scenes things. This is maybe the tone of voice. This is the time, the setting, the how you felt, the how you think they felt, the how you think they're thinking of you. Did your presence make them clam up or talk more? Were you nervous? All that stuff. The behind the scenes stuff. So again, I write some more things here that you'll want to talk about. Remember, when you turn things in, you're turning 5 sets of notes in, as I explained in a previous screencast. Your original question answer, 1, for both respondents. Your original question answer, and then you type those up. Your original methods for both people, and then you type those up. And then your analytic, which I'll get to shortly. Remember some constraints in terms of how much to write. If your handwritten response to a question is less than 5 full lines of your writing, probe. For methods, personal feelings, each needs to be a full half page. So if you're taking methods notes a little bit here and there, it's going to be tough to figure out if you've done an entire half page. So make sure you compile all your methods notes in a format where I can easily see if it is at least a full half page or not of your original handwriting. And I don't care how long it is typed up. So first type of note, question answer. Second type of note, methods, personal feelings, the behind the scenes stuff. Third type of note is called analytic. This is where you answer the question that you want to ultimately know about. And so when I read these notes again, these are only typed. This needs to be at least half a page total. So for methods, personal feelings, at least half a page per interview. Okay. For analytic notes, when I say half a page per interview for your methods, personal feelings, that is handwritten. Analytic only typed up notes, and needs to be at least a page, 12-point font, 1-inch margins, and all that. So let's say that I'm interviewing people about smoking. So my overarching question might be, what affects people's smoking behaviors? So I asked the smoker 5 different questions or 5 questions that relate to his or her smoking behaviors. I asked the non-smoker 5 questions. Can your questions be the same between the two people? Some of them certainly can. Like I might say to the smoker, why do you smoke? And then to the smoker, I say, why do you smoke? The non-smoker, I might say, why don't you smoke? But I also might ask both people, tell them about your parents' smoking behaviors. How do you deal with stress, stuff like that. So after I get my answers to both individuals' questions, I look through them to see what patterns there are. So if you look at the example I give right here, if both people that you're interviewing talks about family background, family influence, then what I'm going to talk about here is the importance of family in these behaviors. So your analytic field notes are helping you to develop a theory, grounded theory, if you will, based on what you observed in your interview questions. So analytic field notes answer the question. So the first thing I'm going to want to read in your analytic notes is what the analytical research question was. What do you want to know about? And then you answer that question, what affects people's smoking behaviors, or whatever your question is. You answer that based on the answers you heard, the things you heard them say, that you can certainly review in the notes you took during the 2 interviews. That's why you have to take really good notes during the interviews, because you'll have to go back and review what they said. So you're not just rehashing in these notes, you're not just rehashing what they said, you're explaining, you're theorizing. What patterns are you seeing? Maybe one person talks more about stress and one person talks more about finances. That's fine. If the 2 patterns you're seeing and people's responses are very different, fine. For the smoker, here's what's going on and why this person smokes. For non-smoker, here's what's going on. If they're the same, then tell me. So you're theorizing, you're making sense, but make sure you do it for at least a full page. Let's go on. We still have another minute or 2 we can talk here. Being real. When you interview, how do you want to do things? Do you want to be a little more aloof, distant, or do you want to be more real? Well, it's a choice you have, to be honest. It's a choice you have. In the traditional interviewing, which has been going on for a long time, the interviewer maintains this distance between himself or herself and the interviewee. In other words, you don't really try and get chummy and pally and stuff like that with the person. Over the past few decades, really I'd say beginning around the 80s, you had a movement that was the approach cropped up that's called being real. So if the person asks you a question, you throw your opinions and thoughts right along in with what he or she is saying. It's up to you. Do you want to be real? Just be the real you, or do you want to be more distant and aloof, if you will, or at least keep your emotions to yourself when you interview? Well, the traditional is maintain your distance. The being real is, just if someone asks you what you think about Democrats or Republicans, you tell them. So that's up to you, your choice. But I want you to know you have 2 options when you do these interviews. So, okay, let's stop right there, and we'll go on some more screencasts shortly.